Good morning. This is Karen Silvernail here, and I just feel the need to stretch myself and do a live again. I feel like I have a new song and a new story to tell about it. Will come back to my memory. I woke up on Christmas morning with the first two lines of a song in my head, and since my kids are grown up, there's no rushing downstairs for opening the presents, so it was a very quiet, private morning. So I worked through finding more cute little rhymes to flesh it out and finish the song and create the sheet music. And if anybody would like the sheet, if you email me, I will give you the PDF of the sheet music so that you can learn it and have fun with the song too. Um, so it's called But God. And well, maybe I'll just quote the words and then I'll sing them after I finish talking. Thus God, but is written. Thus God, on the edge of our seat we're sittin'. In this grand adventure we have embarked upon, there's nothing to do but to hold on. As we face each impossibility, Jesus winks at us and says, just wait and see. Our God is a grand designer. His twists and turns, there's nothing finer. With expectancy, we look toward curve as we serve, and we experience the next, but God. Um, so I've written on this paper that I dedicated it to Pastor Jim Baker of the Zion Christian Fellowship because was inspired through it by his teaching series that I've been part of and studying with called Partnering with God, and he has expressed that thought of God being so creative, and we just get to say, we wait to see how you're going to work this out because you have an infinite creativity of working these problems out that are above and beyond us. So I created the song. This is Christmas Day, Friday, December 25th, 2020. And 2 days later is December 27th. And so there was church in the morning. And then on our way home, we were to stop at my mother-in-law's house. We had to get off the highway, go down an off ramp. And we were just minding our own business, sitting at the red light, waiting for it to turn green. And all of a sudden, kabam! And I admit my very first thought was, oh no, this is going to be 4 Sundays in a row that I'm delayed from my 3 o'clock Zoom prayer meeting that I look forward to so much because it'll be police reports and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And come to find out, we've been rear-ended by someone coming behind down the off-ramp. There was no screeching, no brakes, no sign anything was going to happen. So that's the first experience, finding out what it means to be blindsided. All of a sudden there's this crisis and you did not see it coming. So when the light turned green, my husband rolled the car down and parked on the side of the curb around the corner. And then he got out of the car to see the damage, and I twisted to see if I could get out of the car to go see the damage. And all of a sudden my body said, you should not have turned like that. So in all these 2020 new things and adventures, I got to add to my list of experiences my first ambulance ride and my first going through a CT scanner. I have accompanied my father and probably husband and son and daughter at various times to that part of the hospital, and they went behind that closed door, and I just didn't know what mysterious thing was happening with that donut machine. So now I've lived through that and got to watch it spin and all those things. So anyway, yeah, with this concept, I've learned to try to look for, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? I'm just trying to have a positive attitude, knowing that nothing is accidental and it's all being planned out. So yeah, so the ambulance people came and took me out. And then a few minutes later, I realized I didn't get to see the damage of our car. So I didn't even see it in person. So went there, and I was in the hospital about 7-8 hours, and no visitors with COVID and all that. But so am I looking for the blessing? They put me in the waiting room because I was not an urgent care person. My back was in spasm, but I didn't have nerve damage apparently. So there was this girl who was freaking out, and so I prayed for her as though maybe that's what I'm supposed to be there for her sake. And then she was wheeled out of the room, and then I noticed the TV was on National Geographic doing a documentary on the 90s. And then several hours later, they went to the 80s. And I was live then, but I was busy being a student and busy being a mother. And I just didn't watch the news or get caught up in the things of our culture. Lots of names and events I'd heard about, but I'd never seen images of them. And so it was part of it was emotionally intense to see images of things like Waco, Texas, and President Reagan being the assassination attempt. Having heard of the name Kurt Cobain, but never seeing him. Got to see the infamous picture of a young Brooke Shields with her Calvin Klein ad that I'd never seen or heard. I've heard about it, but I'd never seen it. And just all kinds of things. Candidate President Clinton playing the saxophone, other late night TV shows and things that are so culturally important, but I just never experienced them. So it's like, okay, God, maybe I'm just supposed to be having this long stretch of time to learn about these things. So it went that way. So we did that. Then I came home and we're without a car. And so the insurance company made arrangements for us to rent or to have a rental car through the policy that would cover that. So the past paperwork and on New Year's Day and part of the day after, we're driving around through all the car lots in the area, and Jeffrey climbing under them, checking out the rust, because it was so sad that we had bought our 2016 Grand Caravan in 2018, the first time we'd ever had something like a 2-year-old used car. Because first we were looking for 2014s, and then we say, well, this is a 2015, only 1,000 more. This is a 2016, only a couple hundred more. And so we upgraded to getting a Southern car without rust. And we did rust proofing through Crown, and we flushed the transmission and done all kinds of things, because our family strategy is we try to buy as good a car as we can afford, then maintain it as carefully as we can until just the natural wear and tear makes it not pass inspection anymore, which is what had happened in 2018. So now we had this car, expecting to have it for the next 10 years, and now, bye-bye, car. And so after looking at the ones up here, my husband also went online and looked in Richmond, Virginia, to see if we could find another one down there, because then we could stay overnight at my son and daughter-in-law's house in Virginia and then come back with the car. Even though there's this COVID thing and you're not supposed to go out of state unless you quarantine when you come back. So we found a car and put an offer, expressed our interest in it down there, and they were busy working on it. And came time that yesterday, this is all yesterday, was the last day that we were qualified to have the rental car covered by insurance because of the car being declared a total loss. And yeah, so after all the paperwork and planning, blah, blah, blah. So yesterday morning I finally packed, because I didn't have a chance before that. Got out the door around 10, delivered things about the title and no fault insurance to the hospital. Vacuumed out the car, filled the car with gas, headed down south. Was about 49 miles away from home when the phone rang. Also, that's another part of the thing. At the end of December, I'd renewed the minutes for the pay-as-you-go plan for my little flip phone that I'd probably been using 10, 15 years. And the person on the phone said, oh, by the way, the 3G is going to be discontinued service as of January 1st. And on January 2nd, I got out the phone to see if that really was true. And when I dialed the number, it was just a sound. So it's okay. Well, someday we've got to invest in getting a modern iPhone type thing. And so my husband brought it up that, you're going to need to have a phone on the road when you're going to Virginia. So we went shopping at Best Buy and invested in this phone that I feel like I have to treat with kid gloves because I've never had something so expensive. So anyway, so maybe this accident happened so that I would get the phone. Okay, that's another part of it, saying thank you, Lord. So now we have the phone. So yes, now I have this new phone and it rings, and I'm driving on the highway. So I pulled over at the next exit and called back And he said, the school just called and said our daughter has been exposed to COVID, so the health department was going to be calling us. We have to go through blah, 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 blah. So it'd probably be best for me to turn around and go home. So I turned around, went home, and thought, well, if we're going to be quarantined, I better stock up. So I stopped at the grocery store and had been given a gift card to that store for Christmas and maxed it out and filled the car with groceries or whatever. And started home again. And just a couple seconds later, the phone rings. And so I pull into a parking lot and he says, where are you? I said, well, back on Upper Front Street in Binghamton. It's like, already? The health department called back and said, never mind. It was a false alarm because they realized that Rachel was not in that class, that they thought that she had been exposed to that person. So everything is fine. But now 3 hours are past and the rental car was going to be turned in by midnight in Richmond or wherever. And there was no way I would have the energy to start from scratch and drive to Richmond. So it's like, okay, Lord, maybe we're not meant to have this car. Okay. And we're being delayed for some reason. Oh, and furthermore, on Monday, yeah, it's all this happening. The adjuster called and deposited our settlement into a debit card that I had. And in late afternoon, I found out. So something made me think that I'd heard something about something like that. And I called and found out, yeah, there's only a limited amount that can be withdrawn from a debit card per day. So how could we just go down with the debit card and say, here, subtract off the money in Richmond, Virginia for the car. And so by the time I drove to the bank, they just closed a few minutes earlier than I got there. And then the next day I was trying to okay. The next day they were open. I drove to the drive-through window and they told me they couldn't do anything about it there. But if I called the 800 number, they might be able to make a one-time exception for a lot to be made. But, and I had already done the same thing before. I think it was the same number called and just kept getting put on hold and eventually cut off because of COVID. There's low staffing. So once again, I waited for that. And then also I'd called the car rental company to see about what would be. I hope you're interested in hearing all this because it's all God. What it would be involved to turn the car in out of state, because somebody told me, I think there's fees if you don't return it to the same spot as you got it. But they said it would be fine. But then they looked at our account and said, well, we're only approved until December 31st. And here it's already January 4th. So I was put on hold waiting, trying to get information back from the insurance company, double checking that things were okay and that I wouldn't even be making more unexpected expenses of traveling to Virginia with this car. And so once again, the time came and went for doing the banking. And so I guess that was a God thing because that prevented me from spending the money to get a certified check made out to the car company in Virginia. So all these things I'm taking up, well, this and this and this and this. And meanwhile, there was a car in my hometown an hour away that we'd driven on New Year's Day to see. And it seemed fairly good, but nothing really compared to our perfect rust-free car we had purchased 2 years ago. And there was one in Binghamton we'd looked at. And so then we went down again on, New Year's Day was Friday. And then Sunday after church, we went down and looked at that car a second time. But still the one in Virginia seemed like that would be the better option. But now here we are, mid-afternoon yesterday, and no Virginia car, so we have to do this plan B. So we made arrangements to go to Owego the third time. And there were all kinds of delays of getting there. I don't know what unknown things were prevented or saved up from being delayed a half an hour from the time of having an appointment to try out this other car, which was a 2014. So it's 2 years older than the one we have, but it was a higher grade. And I'd meant to look that up today. What's the difference between an AVP and an SE? What the features are to know. So yeah. So we get there at 4:45. Oh no, we were when I called to make the appointment, the salesman gave me his personal phone number to call in case something came up, and I gave him ours. But when I went out the door, I realized that I didn't have that number with me. But we did have the paperwork from what we'd written down on New Year's Day, and so we called the number for that dealership there. And so while we were there, the two different salesmen were having this playful bantering that he had stolen his customer because it was his phone number that we've been calling. But we said, no, we called that number to give the message to this guy who I had actually spoken to, but it was all in fun. But he explained later what that was all about, so I could reinterpret what had happened. So we took the car out and drove it. And in spite of the rust on the bottom, the body is really, really nice, and the features are really nice. And the price was still a little bit more than we wanted to pay, but we haggled a tiny bit. And then somehow they accidentally wrote down the wrong number when they calculated it, and then they couldn't go back to what they thought they were selling it for. And so they were teasing, that we'd stolen that amount of money of the commission by having the price go down that low. So it was amazing just being there, making phone calls, and pulling out the insurance card that our company had printed out for us to take to the car in Virginia, which would have all the phone numbers and whatever that were necessary to contact them at some headquarters, because it's 5:30 or so the local branch is closed. So we got the salesman got through to somebody, and so talked to her and signed papers, and suddenly I'm driving home in a Dodge Grand Caravan of the same color that we had before. And so I have my little Mopar touch-up paint pen, which will still work because it'll be the same color. And my husband had invested in the repair manual for Dodge Grand Caravan, so that will still be useful to our household. And God is good. In this car, I feel like I'm seated on the back of a majestic war horse. It just you just feel the strength. And then going up and down the two hills back and forth to school, the other caravan really strained to get up the hill. And this one just did it without batting an eyelash. And I'm just giggling, going home. It's like, oh my goodness, God, you gave me this car, but I wasn't looking for anything like this, but you're giving it to me at the price of totaling the other car and having the medical issues. And I don't know, but I just think that, I'd written the song 2 days earlier about the strange, exciting things God puts us through, and all we can do is go along and trust that there are good things that are coming from it. So I think I will sing this song for you. God is good. And I'm playing this on my grandmother's piano, which one of my other cousins had, and then she passed it along to me a couple years ago now. It's slightly out of tune or whatever, but the last time I played live, I used the electric piano, and there's just interference from the electric to the electric. And now when I'm doing my, I figured out doing my not live, but going back to posting my music videos, which before I had been using the Finale audio files, just the digital file, and a musician friend said, branch out, do it live. So I was able to buy cords research on the internet and learn new things about mono and stereo and splitters and now I can't think of the term, buffered. I think that's the word. Balanced chords. So now I hook the electric piano right into the digital recorder. So it's not from the instrument to the air through the speakers into the recorder. So I've done that a couple times now, and that just makes the nice music. But this is live, so it's not as though I'm recording the music and the voice separately and putting them together. So we'll see how this goes. Thank you that you're still listening. It says I've been doing this for 20 minutes and 45 seconds. Wow. Okay. So here is But God, an original song written on Christmas Day 2 week and a half ago. However many days that is. Thanks. Sittin in this grand adventure we've embarked upon. There's nothing to do but to hold on as we face each impossibility. Jesus waits in our senses, just wait and see. Our God is a grand designer. His twists and turns, there's nothing final. With expectancy, we look toward each curve as we serve, and we experience the next but God, and we experience the next but God, and we experience the next but God. But God, yes, it is written, but God, on the edge of our seat we're sitting in this grand adventure we've embarked upon. There's nothing to do but to hold on as we face each impossibility. Jesus waits in our senses, just wait and see. Our God is a grand designer. His twists and turns, there's nothing final. With expectancy, we look toward each curve as we serve, and we experience the next but God, and we experience the next but God, and we experience the next but God. Okay, there's that. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see what new songs come to me in 2021, and I'll have to share for you. And I thank you for listening. And once again, if you want to have the sheet music for it, I'd be happy to send it to you. Just have to send a request for it. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. If I can find the mouse. Here we go.